Picture this, the most glamorous palace in Europe, dripping in gold, chandeliers, and powdered wigs, yet reeking like an open sewer. Versailles wasn't just a palace, it was a perfume bottle stuffed with rot, piss, and royal arrogance. Visitors swore they could smell it long before they saw its gilded gates. Beneath the silks and candlelight, the Sun King's paradise was rotting alive. Welcome to Versailles, where luxury and filth waltz together in powdered shoes. The Hall of Mirrors and chamber pots. Imagine stepping into the Hall of Mirrors, the glittering crown jewel of Versailles. 70 grand chandeliers overhead, 17 mirrored arches bouncing candlelight across polished marble. A space built to dazzle, to intimidate, to scream. France is the center of the universe. But there's a catch. The center of the universe smelled like a public urinal. Nobles, dripping in lace and jewels, treated this marble masterpiece like a subway bathroom. Corners weren't architectural features, they were toilets. Fireplaces doubled as latrines. Curtains swayed gently, hiding a duke squatting like a common drunk outside a tavern. Chamber pots overflowed with aristocratic offerings, and servants poor, doomed servants would fling the contents out the windows. Imagine arriving at Versailles in your finest silk, only to be baptized from above by yesterday's court gossip. In liquid form. The mirrors reflected opulence, but the floor sparkled with something else entirely. Piss puddles catching candlelight like stars on a filthy night sky. Versailles was meant to showcase royal grandeur. Instead, it gave guests a golden memory, just not the kind you'd brag about. And if this was the jewel of the palace, what horrors awaited in the gardens outside? Perfume as plumbing. If the Hall of Mirrors was a toilet with chandeliers, then the rest of Versailles was an open sewer drowned in flowers, and not the natural kind. The palace had no plumbing worth the name. Waste festered in corners, trickled through corridors, and seeped into the very stones. The answer? Perfume. Gallons of it. Nobles didn't so much wear scent as weaponize it. Clouds of rosewater, musk, and lavender clung to their powdered wigs like chemical armor. Walking into a salon was less courtly gathering and more chemical warfare zone. The air itself became hostile. You didn't just smell perfume, you inhaled it, swallowed it, and drowned in it. Imagine choking on a noblewoman's floral cloud until your eyes watered, while behind her someone quietly emptied a chamber pot against the wall. Versailles was a battle of smells, piss versus petals, feces versus frankincense. And the truth? The shit always won. Perfume didn't mask the stench. It mingled with it, creating a heady cocktail of rot and roses. This wasn't fragrance, it was suffocation in silk gloves. And if the perfume couldn't save the palace halls, imagine what floated on the breeze through the royal gardens. The gardens of stinking water. Step outside Versailles, and you're greeted by the famous gardens, acres of fountains, statues, and perfectly trimmed hedges. From a distance, paradise. Up close, a swampy nightmare. Those gleaming pools of water weren't just decorative, they were dumping grounds. Servants tossed chamber pots into fountains as casually as tossing coins in a wishing well. Except these wishes came true in the form of mosquitoes the size of daggers, fattened on aristocratic waste. Picture strolling past a bed of roses, only to be ambushed by clouds of insects buzzing with the sweet tang of sewage. Visitors swore the ponds smelled less like lilies and more like rotten eggs simmering under the sun. And the fountains, those spectacular water displays, were powered by canals that often went stagnant, transforming into open-air latrines dressed up as landscaping. Versailles had invented a new genre of garden, excremental baroque. This wasn't a retreat into nature, it was a stroll through a royal cesspool disguised as Eden. And the worst part, the stench didn't politely stay outside. It clung to your clothes, followed you back into the gilded halls, and made sure you never forgot Versailles. But inside, things were no cleaner, especially when it came to the king's morning ritual. The king's stinky ceremony. Now, let's peek into the royal bedchamber. You might expect silence, dignity, maybe incense wafting through the air. Wrong. At Versailles, Louis XIV turned his bathroom routine into a public theatre. Every morning, the Sun King performed a ritual where nobles lined up to watch him wake, stretch, and relieve himself. Yes, in a palace dripping with gold, the hottest ticket wasn't a ball, but a front-row seat to the king's bowel movements. Prestige came in strange forms here. Imagine elbowing your way past dukes and counts, praying for the honor of holding the royal chamber pot. It wasn't just court duty, it was status. If you were close enough to smell the king's digestion, you were close enough to power, and Louis's digestion was infamous. Constipation, stomach cramps, and messy treatments prescribed by royal doctors became gossip that spread faster than wildfire. The king's colon was basically Europe's trending topic. This was Versailles at its most absurd, the body of the monarch treated as divine, even while sitting on his gilded toilet. Nobles smiled, bowed and inhaled, pretending nothing stank. But if this was a daily ceremony, what horrors did the queen endure in her private chambers? The queen's rotten bedchamber. If the king's mornings were a public bathroom show, the queen's nights were a siege against stench. Step into Marie Antoinette's bedchamber walls wrapped in velvet, ceilings painted with cherubs, candles flickering over silk and gold. On the surface, a dollhouse for royalty. But lean in, breathe deep, and you'll find the perfume can't hide the truth. Just beyond her bedroom door, visitors pissed and defecated freely. The stench seeped through the silk, creeping across her pillows like an invisible intruder. Servants rushed to scatter herbs and burn incense, but the smell always won. Food scraps from endless banquets rotted under the floorboards. Fleas infested the carpets. Rats scurried across the queen's parquet, bold enough to nibble crumbs off golden plates. Some nights, scratching noises kept her company more faithfully than courtiers. Versailles wasn't just a palace, it was a rodent paradise with a queen trapped in the middle. And here's the irony. Marie Antoinette has gone down in history for being spoiled. Yet the woman slept in a room that smelled like a sewer wrapped in silk. If that was paradise, imagine dinner in this gilded slaughterhouse. The Feast of Flies banquets at Versailles were legendary. Tables groaned under mountains of roasted swan, dripping venison, candied fruits, and pies the size of carriages. Crystal goblets sparkled. Gold cutlery gleamed, and musicians filled the air with harpsichord notes. But here's the punchline. All of it was for the flies. The stench of waste and rot drew them in like a royal invitation. Clouds of buzzing black wings descended the moment the dishes were set down. They drowned themselves in wine, crawled across pastries, and dive-bombed into soup bowls. Nobles swatted and cursed while pretending nothing was wrong. One guest might be delicately carving a pheasant, while another fished a half-drowned fly out of his champagne. It wasn't fine dining, it was pest control with table service. Leftovers didn't go far either. Servants heaved scraps out the nearest window, adding to the fermenting piles already stewing in the courtyards. By the next feast, the cycle began again. Luxury served on golden plates, seasoned with the constant hum of insects. Versailles called it grandeur, the flies called it home, and if the feasts couldn't hide the truth, then neither could the wind, because Versailles didn't just stink inside, it broadcast its perfume for miles. The royal stench that travelled you didn't need to step inside Versailles to know it was rotten. Travellers claimed they could smell the palace long before they saw its golden gates. Imagine riding through the French countryside, expecting the sweet scent of meadows and hay, then suddenly gagging as the wind shifts. Versailles announced itself not with trumpets, but with the aroma of sewage and spoiled meat. The closer you got, the worse it became. Perfume clouds leaking from powdered courtiers mixed with the heavy reek of waste piled in courtyards, and the whole concoction drifted miles down the road. Locals joked that you could follow your nose straight to the Sun King, except no one was laughing when their crops reeked of royal excrement. Versailles was supposed to symbolize divine order, power, and elegance. Instead, it was France's largest open toilet, a perfume ad written by the devil himself. The irony? Kings and queens dreamed their palace would outlast time, and it did, but not in the way they hoped. Versailles is remembered not just for its mirrors and gardens, but for the smell of the unforgettable rotting scent of hypocrisy wrapped in gold. Versailles dazzled Europe with gold, mirrors and gardens, but its true legacy was stench, a palace that reeked of perfume and piss, where nobles waded through filth while pretending it was paradise. Visitors came to witness grandeur, but left with stained shoes and a story their noses would never forget. The Sun King built a monument to himself, but he also built a landfill in silk stockings. Versailles wasn't just the smell of France, it was the smell of hypocrisy, rotting beneath all that gold.